I'll work harder than an ugly stripper.
Bad.
This was my ass.
Well, hello.
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian. We have a massive show ahead for you today. I gotta say, Arthur, our video editor, I really put him to work today. So thank you to Arthur for grabbing all the video elements that I'm gonna be presenting to our audience. You guys are really in for a treat. Lots of updates. We will not be updating you. Okay, fine, I'll update you on the war in Iran. We're still in the same place. Trump still be playing. Okay, Trump is mulling, reigniting the war against Iran, although he wants to pursue diplomacy, wants to give diplomacy a shot. I'm done with it. I don't care what the president has to say because he's not a trustworthy person. So until there is something robust enough for me to update you on in regard to the war against Iran, I'm just going to stop giving you these minor little updates every single day. You're going to be fatigued from it. I'm fatigued from it at this point. So I will update you when there's a big news story. But for now, we're pretty much in the same purgatory phase because we decided to enter a war with Israel, which is supposed to be considered an ally, but clearly has very different objectives from the United States. I don't even know what our objectives are at this point, to be honest with you. So, but we've got a lot of other news to cover, including more anti-establishment candidates winning electorally. We'll talk about what happened in Colorado just yesterday. Kamala Harris attempting to ingratiate herself with the very people she tried to run off, the very people she ignored when she was running in 2024. We'll get into the details on that in the first hour. Theo Von challenged Senator John Kennedy on Israel. And I'm not gonna lie, that conversation was infuriating because it was a peek into how effortlessly these disgusting, corrupt politicians lie to people when they know that the person they're talking to doesn't necessarily know everything they need to know in order to push back. Theo Von, I think, is a good person. Politics is not his expertise. And so it was a perfect opportunity for a scumbag like Senator Kennedy to lie to him. I mean, the guy lies about his own accent. Literally. Okay, we'll talk about that later in the show. And Hexit ensures that our military weaponry is less safe and untested before it hits the battleground. Fantastic. Can't wait to share that with you as well. As always, just want to encourage you to like and share the stream if you're watching us live. It's a free and easy way to help support the show and get the message of TYT out there to a broader audience. You can also support us by becoming a paid member. Paid members get exclusive members only content, especially on Wednesdays when I do a bonus episode behind a paywall, of course, for our members. And Jonathan Conricus, the former IDF spokesperson, took a few jabs at me and Cenk. I will be talking about that and I will be responding to it. So that is for our members, tyt.com/join to become a member. You can also hit that join button if you're watching us on YouTube. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's get to our first story.
Yeah, let's start in that first congressional district there. I think everyone acknowledges that the longtime incumbent here, Diana DeGette, at the very least, is in some serious jeopardy today in this primary. Her main challenger here, coming from the far left, Maylot Kiros, backed by the Democratic Socialists of America, running to the left of DeGette, really stressing Israel, criticisms of attacks on Israel, sort of core to her campaign. That is a model that we just saw some insurgent Democratic candidates successfully use in New York congressional districts last week.
Well, Diana better to get out of here, if you know what I mean, because it turns out that yet again, we have another race where a Democratic Socialist, an anti-establishment, anti-Israel candidate beats out a long time serving incumbent in the Democratic Party. And I'm real curious to see how this plays out, because if you think New York was, a little bit of a novel situation considering how blue New York is. Well, Colorado is considered a, purple state to some extent. Obviously, it has some deep blue districts, but we are seeing the anti-Israel sentiment among the Democratic base actually bear fruit in regard to the outcome of some of these elections. So let's get into some of these details because Coloradans just witnessed, again, a repeat of what we saw just last week in the Democratic primaries in New York, where an anti-Zionist or anti-Zionist economic populist defeated pro-Israel incumbents. So in Denver, and that's really the big race everyone seems to be talking about, voters chose the anti-establishment Democratic Socialist. Her name is Melat Kiros, and she beat I can't even believe this. She beat a 30-year incumbent congresswoman by the name of Diana DeGette. And Kiros wasn't even born when DeGette was first elected into Congress in 1997. There should be term limits. I know that historically speaking, term limits have always been thought of as something that's promoted by Republicans. I don't really know why that's the case. We should have term limits for everybody, okay? Like, no one should serve in Congress for 30 years, especially considering the state of our country as we speak. Clearly, DeGette did not deserve to be a public servant to the American people. But nonetheless, she was voted out. She lost in the primary. Now, outside spending for both candidates exceeded $3.1 million. In the last few weeks of this particular race, and this is for Colorado's first district, there was just this flood of money coming in from outside donors in an effort to try to beat Kiros, but clearly that's not what happened. She won. Now, Kiros was actually working in New York as an attorney. This is back in November of 2023. When she actually got fired because she had posted an open letter to law firms that were opposing pro-Palestinian protests. And I want to read you what she wrote. She wrote it on Medium specifically, and she refused to take it down. And as a result of that, she ends up losing her job. Then she travels back to Colorado. She goes back home and she's like, I'm gonna get politically active. And she decides to run for Congress. So she wrote, this is November 7th, 2023, the following. Beginning on November 1st, 2023, numerous US law firms, including my own, signed a letter. This letter rightfully rebukes the anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and bigotry of all kinds that has spiked in recent weeks, but then goes on, to my confusion, to cite calls for the elimination of the Israeli state as anti-Semitism. So this is, the ongoing battle between people who pretend like they don't know the difference between a political ideology, Zionism, and a entire group's identity, which is Jewish, Judaism, their ethnicity, their religion. They know the difference. They just like to use the entire Jewish population as human shields in order to provide cover for the terrible genocidal project that's currently taking place in the Middle East. But let me continue with what else Kiros had to say. She says, anti-Semitism has fittingly been called the longest hatred. It has been so for thousands of years and has led to the death and suffering of millions of Jewish people around the world. To conflate such bigotry with the geopolitical question of Israel's legitimacy is one of the greatest travesties in this conflict. Further, she writes, while this letter makes no explicit threats against one's potential employment with these signatories' firms, including her own firm, by the way, at the time, the chilling effect is undeniable. The right to question not only the legitimacy of a government, but also its actions is the bedrock principle of a true democracy. Clearly, I agree with her wholeheartedly on this perspective. Now, I don't live in Colorado. I don't vote in Colorado's elections. So her other policies obviously seem to be appealing to Coloradans, which is why she won by a pretty significant margin. Now, she was again fired for refusing to take that post down. She travels back to Colorado, decides that she's gonna run for Congress. But I wanna be clear that her letter certainly made an impact. So here's what she had to say about it. I got messages from hundreds of attorneys afterwards saying that they wish they could speak up too, but that they couldn't afford to lose their job, that they couldn't afford to lose their health insurance. True freedom of expression doesn't exist when you can't speak out on behalf of human rights without it risking your job. And so, look, oftentimes the people who are willing to take the risk, as Quiros did, and she paid the price, she got fired from her job. But when you do that, and I know this from personal experience, what you're essentially doing is sending a signal out to everyone else. You're giving everyone else permission. Okay, and it's so important to do that. Not everyone has the stomach for it, because oftentimes when you're among the first to speak out against something that's controversial, or the very mere fact that you're speaking out is considered controversial, like that discourages people from being among the first to speak out. But once enough people have spoken out, right? When the first group is willing to kind of put their ass on the line to tell the truth, again, it normalizes the perspective, and it gives permission for others who feel the same way to also speak out. So I just really want to thank her for doing this, because I personally know how difficult it is. I personally know what it's like to get attacked. I personally know what it's like to lose employment as a result of it. Luckily, I work at the Young Turks, so I don't have to worry about losing the most important job I have. But at the end of the day, it is a very difficult thing to do what she did. And even though she paid the price, in the long run, she was rewarded by the people of her district. So this is, again, 1st District of Colorado. So even though DeGette, that was the incumbent, presented herself as this like bold progressive who allegedly, and I say allegedly because I didn't hear much from DeGette. She was in Congress for 30 years. Where were you? Like, I didn't hear much from you, to be honest, right? But she purported to be this, big time progressive who's in favor of Medicare for all and other left-wing domestic policies. However, she was very, very pro-Israel. And so that's not gonna fly among progressives. Like, if you are presenting yourself as a progressive because that's gonna help you get reelected again and again and again, and then all of a sudden you throw a monkey wrench where you're like, I'm gonna go ahead and defend everything Israel's doing. Ethnic cleansing, totally cool. Genocide, great. I'm gonna green light it. I'm gonna fund their weaponry for sure. That's gonna turn a lot of voters off. And I think that's what happened in this election. So Quiros actually argued that DeGette had become part of the party's out of touch establishment and accepted corporate donations while not doing enough to support the working class. That was her argument. Now, she also told The Intercept, quote, but ultimately there are things that we can do, common sense policies that we can pass, like Medicare for all, housing first, universal child care, that we just need people in Congress that actually represent us and not their wealthy donors to fight for. So Usama Andrabi, who actually happens to be the new, I don't know how new this person is, to be fair, right? But this is the spokesperson for Justice Democrats. He puts out a statement saying that members of the Democratic establishment hate that they can no longer simply spend unlimited sums of money to buy a seat in Congress. And we are truly moving or proving that organized people power and mass movements can beat the money. And I agree with that. I definitely agree with that, which is why I was really shocked and saddened to see what happened to Thomas Massie, because even though he had all this money working against him from the Zionist lobby, from the Israel lobby, fact of the matter is, he had won his previous re-elections by wide margins, even with Trump attacking him and promoting the primary challenger to Massie. But unfortunately, what we saw with the Massie race was the ads that they played in his Kentucky district were apparently effective enough to convince voters that, oh, it looks like he's actually in bed with progressive Democrats, which couldn't be further from the truth. Look, we give Massie credit because he's a principled politician. That doesn't mean we agree with him on everything or even most of his policies. But here's the thing that I really value in our current political system, where this is very rare. Massie actually says what he believes. He's not saying things that he doesn't believe just to get elected and then pull the rug out from underneath you. So I want the people of his district to feel that they have a public servant that is representing them. even if the people of that district want policies that differ from my own preferences. That's democracy, that's America. These are my fellow Americans and I want them to be represented just like how I want to be represented by my lawmakers in my district and my state. Now, with that in mind, Quiros will now go on to face a Republican in the general, Christy Peterson. This is going to happen in November, of course, when the rest of the elections are taking place. However, so far it appears that Quiros is heavily favored to win. So we'll see how that plays out. Right now, the Israel lobby is pumping a lot of money in the race in Maine between Susan Collins and Graham Plattner. And a poll just came out that shows that she has really closed his lead. So we'll see how that plays out, but don't fall asleep, okay? Like if you are motivated, if you're invigorated, reinvigorated by these races, don't just think that all they need to do is win their primary. You got to take it home. So you got to pay attention, see how they're doing in the polling. And maybe you got to knock on doors if we're talking about politicians in your particular district. Now, I want to pivot to some of the other Colorado races because it was mixed. I don't want everyone to think that, it was all Democratic socialists who like blew every incumbent out of the water. That's not the case. But there were other anti-establishment candidates who seem to have beaten, long-time Democratic politicians. So let's go to the gubernatorial race. Phil Weiser, the state's two-term attorney general, defeated sitting Senator Michael Bennet. So Michael Bennet was also running in the gubernatorial race, and in the Democratic primary, he was beat by Phil Weiser. Now, Weiser presented himself as an outsider who will go after Donald Trump, who has gone after Donald Trump in several court cases. And so he's basically making it clear, like, I'm an anti-establishment politician who is ready and willing to fight Trump aggressively. In fact, I have a track record to prove it. And that's the other thing. It's not just the anti-Israel sentiment that has really grown in the Democratic base. What's also infuriating Democratic voters is that they feel that Democratic politicians aren't really fighting back. They're not really doing what they can to offer a genuine, robust counter to the Republican Party and especially to Trump. So if you think you can get by just being a mealy-mouthed Democrat who hyper focuses, hyper fixates on like some of the wedge social issues, and you say mean things about Trump, but you're not actually strategic about how you're gonna fight back, Democratic voters have been taking notice. And I personally love to see it. I still consider myself an independent because I'm so disgusted by the Democratic Party, but it appears to be changing. And it's coming from the grassroots. It's coming from ordinary voters who are like, yeah, we've had enough. No more of this. We're gonna vote the incumbents out. So, the overall results of the races in Colorado yesterday are mixed though. So I just gave you two examples of anti-establishment candidates beating the incumbent, not necessarily the incumbent when it comes to the gubernatorial race, but basically beating the more establishment Democrat. So in the statewide race for a Senate seat, the centrist incumbent, Senator John Hickenlooper, ended up keeping his seat as a progressive challenger came by, Julie Gonzalez. Unfortunately, Gonzalez fell short of ousting Hickenlooper, so Hickenlooper will remain. He has refused, by the way, to debate Gonzalez and even tried to thwart her from running in this race to begin with. In Colorado's 5th district, Jessica Killen, an Army veteran, and also a previous chief of staff to former husband Doug Emhoff, second husband. Okay, beat Joe Reagan. So Reagan was the populist second-time candidate and also a veteran himself. But Killen had far outraised in this race and had the backing of the Democratic National Committee. Days before the election, Killen also pledged to sign on to a pact by conservative House Democrats that equates socialism with, listen to this carefully. This is how insane this is. Equated socialism with the right-wing MAGA movement. What? Like what? Since when was the right-wing MAGA movement known for socialism? That's insane. But turns out, people fell for it. So there you have it. The populist candidate lost in that particular race. But either way, we are seeing some of the anti-establishment candidates beat out these incumbents. And I love to see it. Even if I don't fully agree with everything, the anti-establishment candidates are proposing, it doesn't matter. We need to shake up this political system. We need to shake up Congress. It is a nightmare. It is a disaster. And we do need to have more anti-Israel voices in there, because right now, I don't even think there's a handful of them. And we shouldn't be a servant state to a terrorist state. And that's currently what the United States is to Israel. I've had enough of that. So there are a lot of people who are considering themselves single issue voters for the midterms, possibly even the presidential election, depending on how long this war against Iran goes. But I do love to see people starting to get active and realizing we need to think a little more strategically about how we're going to change the culture of this country. And when I say culture, I mean the culture of endless wars, culture of endless enabling of corporate greed. We want to change that. The only way you can really change that is if you get rid of the Congress people who have been in office for 30 freaking years. That's insane. So I'd to get. Anyway, well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how some of these corporate Democrats are waking up to the reality that there is a revolt, okay? There's a revolution transpiring. And so Kamala Harris happens to be one of them. And she is now trying to ingratiate herself with the very people that she ignored, chided, absolutely loathed during her 2024 run. I'll tell you who those people are and more when we come back.
Work harder than an ugly stripper, man.
I'm sure you do, Senator Kennedy. I'm sure you do. Anyway, thank you to our members, including Benjamin, one of our TYT.com members, who says, "Whoa, is Anna's hair a new color? I don't know what's different, but it looks so nice." I got my roots done last Friday. You probably didn't notice because I didn't bother styling it much. But thank you. Stiff Upper Lip says, "I know us TYT members have to deal with a whole lot of bad news all the time, but wait, the last 7 days, the tide is starting to turn. Do you notice all of the progressives who are winning? Well, ain't that something? Sucks to be a centrist Democrat. Good luck with life." I want to shake up the system badly. I need the Democratic Party, I need both parties actually to get the message that we're done. We're done with, honestly, we don't even get 5% change anymore. We get negative change. Like we are regressing as a country, and I'm sick of it. And I think most American voters are sick of it. So I do love to see that these incumbents are getting voted out. They need to be punished, okay? This is how you punish them. So I love to see it. Winter Scoop says, if she was in Congress for 30 years, how the hell do we not recognize her name? Exactly. Black Mage 999 in our Twitch section says, give us good candidates and we elect them. Who'd have thunk it? I know, it's amazing. All right, I'll read more comments when we come back.
This was my ass.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, as always. And let me tell you a little bit about Chili Pad. You might be wondering, what the hell is that? What's Chili Pad? Well, how many of you are guilty of doom scrolling late at night on social media, looking at the news, and then wondering why you can't fall asleep? I know it happens to me. I didn't get any sleep last night. I'm a little bit loopy. But we have a new sponsor, a new partner, if you will, that can help you out. So the stress, the screen time, it all raises your core body temperature, and a body that's too hot cannot get that deep sleep. That's why I recommend the ChiliPad 2.0, the water-based mattress topper that actively controls your bed temperature from 55 to 115 degrees all night long. No new mattress, no renovation. I mean, you don't really renovate your bed, but you get what I mean, right? Like you don't have to get a new mattress. You just get the topper. You just get the ChiliPad 2.0 topper, and it'll keep you cool as a cucumber. And if you're wondering, well, Anna, are you offering us anything here? Are we gonna get anything out of this aside from an awesome topper that's gonna keep us nice and cool at night? Yes, I'm gonna offer you a nice little discount. So visit www.sleep.me/TYT to get up to $255 off your ChiliPad 2.0 with code TYT. You gotta use that code. Just type in TYT when they ask you if you have a coupon, and you could get up to $255 out or off, I should say. So that's again, sleep.me/TYT, free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial. So you can test it out and figure out if you're actually into it. If you're not, you can return it for free. So love to hear that. Check it out. Okay, let's unfortunately take a little bit of a blast from the past and talk about Kamala Harris, because as much as I was hoping that she would be savvy enough not to run in 2028, it does appear that she is serious about running in 2028. So let's get into it. Well, it certainly looks like Kamala Harris is serious about running for president in 2028. And how do we know that? Well, a new Axios piece gets into the details about the various figures she's been meeting with behind the scenes. And New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist, someone who is certainly to the left of Kamala Harris, someone who is unapologetically critical of Israel, that's the person she met with, along with other progressive groups, and even members of the Arab American community who were furious with her because she chided them, ignored them, and wouldn't even let one of her Arab surrogates speak at the Democratic National Convention because she was so terrified that she might say something about Palestine and the fact that the Palestinians have been dealing with a genocide under Kamala Harris's watch, along with Joe Biden, of course, the president at the time. Kamala Harris was the vice president, but she kind of went along with everything Biden was doing and said that she wouldn't change a thing. She literally said that. Now, all of a sudden, I think she's realizing, ooh, all these establishment Democrats who have been doing Israel's bidding, they're having a tough time winning re-election. Some of them are getting voted out. DeGette over in Colorado, who had been in office for 30 years, was just beaten in her primary by a Democratic socialist who is unapologetically defending the Palestinian people and criticizing Israel. It's kind of incredible. So according to Axios, Harris called Mamdani last Thursday to talk about the party's future and plan a longer conversation. A person familiar with the call told Axios. Okay, before I continue, there are, I'm sure, some Democratic voters in the audience who have some sympathy for Kamala Harris, and I really don't want to upset you. So I just want to give you fair warning. My commentary is going to upset you. Kamala Harris is a disgrace, and she's not fooling anyone. You're not fooling anyone, okay? Like this whole chameleon thing she does, where in 2020 she runs to the left of Bernie Sanders, by the way, or pretends to be to the left of Bernie Sanders. 2024, in that 3-month campaign that she had, she starts off by kind of pretending like she's a progressive. Then she immediately does this pivot to the pro-corporate wing of the Democratic Party. And it's like, okay, what are your values? She's the female version of Gavin Newsom. In fact, the two of them, honestly, behind the scenes are rivals because the two of them are the same. Maybe not aesthetically, maybe not when it comes to race and gender, but in terms of values, they are the same. They have none. So like having conversations with people like Zohran Mamdani, attempting to ingratiate yourself with the very people that you very offensively swatted away in 2024 isn't gonna fool anyone. But let me just continue with what else we've learned through this reporting in Axios. So she apparently occasionally texted with Mamdani in the last few months and called him 2 days after his endorsed candidates in New York won their races. Now, Harris and her team are also reaching out to pro-Palestinian activists and has been doing so over the past year. So that includes Abbas Alaway, who is the co-founder of the 2024 Uncommitted movement, which of course grew out of frustration over Joe Biden's foreign policy in the Middle East, which aided and abetted genocide, the genocide of the Palestinian people. So you had all these Arab Americans, certainly in places like Michigan, who raised their hands and said, look, we've historically voted for Democrats, but no, we're uncommitted now, because how can we vote for the Democratic candidate unless we have assurances that all this slaughter of our people ends? And of course, it didn't end. Trump comes in and puts Biden's disgusting, loathsome, contemptible foreign policy on steroids. They're both terrible. Okay, so I don't want you to think like, oh no, I mean, Biden was so much better. They're both terrible. Like I've said before, Joe Biden provided the lubrication for us and the Arab people to get effed. Okay, that's what he did. So let's get back to Alaway. So during their talks, he said, he reiterated my longstanding position that American tax dollars should never be used to target civilians or destroy entire communities. Alaway, let's go further. Let's go further, much further, okay? It's simply not good enough at this point for me to simply say, let's stop voting in favor of, defensive or offensive weaponry. No, let's sanction them. They're committing genocide and ethnic cleansing in the Middle East. Embargo, sanction, that is the right way to go. I'm so far past maybe we temporarily stop sending them all our money so they can slaughter people with it. No, I think we should sanction them. But anyway, Alaway, who stressed he wasn't speaking for the uncommitted movement, added that he shared with her that members of the community that I'm seeking to represent have recently lost family members in Israeli airstrikes and have been supported by the United States. So like, how are you gonna, I wouldn't even be able to look at Kamala Harris in the face. Like I'd be so disgusted. I would not take a meeting with her. I do not begrudge any of these people for agreeing to speak with her, by the way. It's their right to do so. Absolutely no bad vibes in that direction. My bad vibes are 100% reserved for Kamala Harris, who is embarrassing, who has no values, who is attempting to use these people for her own political aspirations. And it makes me sick. Like, what do you represent? What are your values? What are your principles? I'm not sure she knows because she might not have any. So Harris also talked with James Zogby, who's a longtime member of the DNC and has advocated for Palestinian rights. He's the founder and president of the Arab American Institute. Harris also reached out to former aides and other Democrats to discuss China, artificial intelligence, which, I'm sure she's gonna be great on these issues, Venezuela and other issues. People familiar with the communications told Axios. Now, in case I wasn't clear, let me just be clear right now. I personally find Kamala Harris to be weak, lame, old news. She wrote in her 2025 book, 107 Days, that she privately pleaded with Biden to show more empathy for civilians killed in Gaza. Okay, come back to me. No one needs empathy, okay? We need action. No one voted these people into office because they're just yearning for their empathy. Please give the Palestinian people some empathy. No. How about you stop sending weapons to the genocidal country that you vociferously defended? How about that? Can you consider that maybe, please? Empathy isn't gonna save people's lives, okay? No one needs your empathetic vibes, but okay, let me continue with what else. Axios, can you tell I'm annoyed here? Because it's just so obvious what she's doing. So he couldn't do it, she wrote. While Biden could passionately state, I am a Zionist, his remarks about innocent Palestinians came off as inadequate and forced. It wasn't about his statements. It was about his actions. He skirted congressional approval to send more and more weapons and money to Israel as they were dropping 2,000-pound bombs on civilians' heads. That was the problem, Kamala, not his statements. His statements were pretty bad too. Let's just keep it 100. But that was a smaller issue compared to his actions. He was the top politician in America who received money from the Israel lobby. He received the most money from AIPAC of any politician, left or right. That's the problem. That's the problem, Kamala. Harris also wrote that she sometimes was frustrated with pro-Palestinian protesters interrupting her campaign events in 2024. I don't know, maybe it would have been better for you to take their protest seriously. Maybe invite one of them to come speak with you at a rally if you're a serious person, but she's not. She said, quote, "The issue was not binary, but the outcome of this election certainly was." Okay. No one owes you anything. The idea that the country owes you something because you're running against someone who's worse, those days are over. Those days are over. They're over. No more emotional manipulation to get votes from the Democratic base when you've done nothing for them, and in fact, have only helped this country regress by aiding and abetting the dismantling of international law, for instance. She had an opportunity on The View to clearly outline how her presidency would have been different from Biden's. And she said, I wouldn't change anything. So you got what you deserved. Pointing to pro-Palestinian protesters and essentially telling them, oh, well, this issue isn't binary, but the outcome of this election is, you gotta vote for me because the other guy is bad, is so despicable. And it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So I know she thinks she's doing the work here. I don't think she's doing the work. I think she's under the impression that she's gonna launch a campaign rebranding herself as some sort of warrior or fighter for the Palestinian cause or for the progressive cause or for the anti-establishment cause. But you wanna know when that would have mattered? When she was in a position to do something about it and she did nothing. She did nothing. So that's what I think of Kamala Harris. All right, I'm gonna rage against a Republican when we come back from the break. So don't worry, I'll save some of my ire for that. We gotta take a quick break, we'll be right back. Well, welcome to all our new members, some of whom are new members because they received gift memberships from our already existing members, and they're just so wonderful. Melody Loves Music gifted 1 TYT membership. Rose Orozco, 1384, also gifted a TYT membership, and so did Big Stan 402. Thank you so much for the support, guys, and welcome to our new members. I hope you guys enjoy the bonus episode today. Let's go over to some of our member comments. 313 Realist says, Anna for president. Anna for president. I'd gladly serve. I'm under your command. I'm watching this on my phone and TV at the same time. 313 Realist, thank you for the kind words. I think I'm honestly more effective doing what I do. I don't think I certainly do not want to run for office. Definitely not for president. But thank you for the support. And if you want to help, definitely spread this stream, like the stream, get more people to hear the unvarnished truth. Because as you guys can probably tell, especially if you're a live viewer, honestly, I'm not really interested in picking sides. What I'm interested in doing is figuring out what the truth is. And when the Democrats F up, I'm gonna tell you. When the Republicans F up, I'm gonna tell you. And that's what's important to me at this point. What is the truth? How can I get people the most accurate information possible? My opinions are my opinions. I think it's pretty clear when I am doing editorial. But anyway, let's go over to our super chats. Dav Mills says, anyone studied the glorious revolution of 1688? What's up, everyone? Welcome back. I wanted to read some super chats because I just want to. So I'm going to do that right now. Dav Mills says, anyone studied the glorious revolution of 1688? James II tried to disarm the English people. The army did a little math. More of them than us. Same weapons as we have. Join the rebels. I'm going to leave it right there. But I agree. All right. We've got Corey Brown, 2895, who says, hate or not, McConnell showed the Democratic base how to obstruct or slow government to a crawl to get concessions. The base wants wins, like Mitch pulled off. You know what? Not only are you making an excellent point, this actually opens up a really good opportunity for me to say something that I've been wanting to say on the show. You know, back in 2020, there was that whole force the vote movement, and I was on the other side of that. And I still think that even if Democrats had forced a vote on Medicare for all on the House floor, I don't think it would have ended up anywhere. However, at this point, even so, I don't care. I don't care. It should have happened anyway. The people who were in favor of force the vote were right, because these public servants need to fear us, okay? That's what they need to do. And when you think about Trump's original base and how loyal he was to them in the beginning before he made the pivot in his second term, it was because he wanted their approval. Democrats have been able to manipulate their base by essentially fear-mongering about the other side. And it's like, oh, just endless emotional manipulation. Well, you know, if you don't vote for us, if you don't support us, if you don't act as our public servants, the other guys are gonna win. Ooh, aren't you so scared? So look, you live, you learn, you grow, you look back at things, and yeah, give them hell. Give them hell. They are our public servants. So I totally agree with you. Let's go to Master Zen 107, who says, Anna looking so radiant, she's probably causing global warming. Geez, thank you. Those poor polar bears, happy birthday month. Oh, we don't talk about that, okay? Thank you. And I'll read just one more. This is from 00083. Word Salad Harris trying to make a comeback. No thanks. The last time you showed us exactly who you are, I'll take a very hard pass. Thank you. I agree with you. I think that right now you're seeing some positive momentum with the Democratic Party. Don't let her ruin it. And I do think she would ruin it. So let's talk a little bit about the mask coming off of some of these politicians who are not seeking re-election. Let's get into it.
How do House Republicans make the case that you're fighting for affordability when you go back to your districts?
Affordability? What are you talking about?
Affordability is the big...
I'm going to go there tomorrow. Over the 4th. I'm going to get me a couple big lobster tails. I'm going to get me some nice ribeyes.
Do you think that 60% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck can afford lobster tails and ribeyes and all of that?
Maybe not. Maybe the 60% of America don't work as hard as I do either. I mean, I don't know.
Did you just hear that? That was a sitting member of Congress arguing that Americans who are struggling with affordability as we barrel toward the 4th of July weekend, maybe they're just not working hard enough, you know? Might not have anything to do with our failure of a government. It's all your fault. You're not working hard enough. So if you're wondering who that clown was, it's Texas Congressman Tony Nels. He is not seeking re-election, which is why the mask is fully off, fully off. He's like, oh, having trouble paying your bills, are we? Maybe you're not working hard enough. Inflation, yeah, inflation's happening for sure. But anyway, it's your fault. It's just... So his statements come as Americans, again, are scaling back ahead of the 4th of July weekend. So how hard does Representative Nels work? Because he claims he's a hard worker, right? We're all bums. Anyone who's having difficulty in this inflationary environment, bums, that's all it is. So he must be working real hard, do manual labor. No, he's a member of Congress, which means he doesn't work hard at all. And in fact, has like half the year off. But let's get to the details here. So while Representative Nels is calling you a bum, he doesn't really like to show up to work. What do I mean by that? Well, according to GovTrack, from January of 2021 to June of 2026, he missed a total of 186 roll call votes. He missed 6.6% of the roll call votes. So let me ask you something. And by the way, this is with the current congressional schedule, which allocates, I don't even know, like literally half the year to recess, vacation time, fundraising time, whatever. And he still missed 6.6% of the roll call votes. He's working harder than us? How so? Can you explain? Can you tell us how? So I mean, the ball's on this guy to insult the American people like this. So the average of about, so yes, okay, so I told you about his votes. Now, he probably feels that it's totally okay to brazenly insult the American people like this because again, he's not seeking re-election. But when Nels does vote, what does he vote for? Well, he votes for the very things that tend to lead to the inflationary environment we're experiencing right now. I mean, is he like a vociferous opponent against the war in Iran, which has driven up energy costs, which trickles down to other sectors of the economy, obviously. Obviously, we're having a shortage of fertilizer, which our farmers need to grow food. That is having an impact on the cost of food. Was he a champion, like a real warrior against entering the war? Of course not. But I'll tell you what he does vote in favor of, what his donors want, what his corporate donors want, which usually has to do with deregulation, subsidies for corporations, things like that. And by the way, he did vote yes on the so-called Secure America Act. That was the bill that cut SNAP and kicked 4 million Americans off of food assistance. So won't protest the tens of billions of dollars. Actually, when you consider how much we've spent on the war in Iran so far, and of course, that's a war that's being fought on behalf of Israel. I mean, we've spent now over $100 billion on Israel and its wars since October 7th, 2023. But we got to kick Americans off of food assistance because we don't have the money, right? So the struggle Americans are feeling is real and can be felt. I'm sure many of you are feeling it right now. So the data backs it up. And you know I always love to show the receipts. So this is data from payments.com. I've got other sources of data that I'll get to in just a second. But payments.com found that 70% of people are currently living paycheck to paycheck in America. 70%, 70%. Can someone please explain to me how we could ever justify sending a shred of foreign aid to any other country? And yeah, I mean any other country. When 70% of our own people are living paycheck to paycheck. When we're $40 trillion in federal debt. Someone explain it to me, I'm very curious. 25% of people in this survey said that they struggle to pay their bills. Then you have Pew Research. They did a poll and they found that Americans are not happy with the US economy. This is one of many polls that found similar results. So 72% of Americans rate economic conditions in the country as fair, only fair or poor. 52% say that Trump's policies make their lives worse off. And 44% of Americans describe their personal financial situation as very bad. So let's take a look at this chart. And what you're looking at is what Americans are most concerned with. And that includes healthcare, the cost of food, the cost of housing. I mean, look at these numbers. Okay, so if you take a close look, 71% of Americans are very concerned about the cost of healthcare. 66% very concerned about the price of food. 62% very concerned about the cost of housing. 51% very concerned about the price of electricity. And that's just the very concerned. I'm not even including the percentage of Americans who are somewhat concerned. So President Trump has made it clear this year that he doesn't really care that much about affordability. He doesn't care about the cost of housing or your grocery bill. And what's amazing to me about this man is, for the longest time, he would tell you to your face how little he gives a damn about you. And I think for the first time, we're finally starting to see it backfire. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is what I mean.
Your plans for the housing bill, Mr. President?
I don't know. I think it's so unimportant by compared to the Save America Act. There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up. They came in and they said affordability. They made up the word because that's the only thing they're good at. Although I'm good at making up words too.
Will you sign that housing bill?
I have not. It hasn't been sent to me yet. It's coming. I understand, and then I'll make it. Here's what I would like to sign. Much more than a bill. That big deal. It's a yawn. Me, compared to the Save America Act, just about everything is a big yawn.
Just everything is a big yawn. Let's take a look at let's talk about the fact that this is, again, it continues to be a top concern for Americans. So this chart shows that Americans are most concerned with the cost of healthcare, food, housing, and these issues remain a top concern for Americans. A CNN SSRS survey conducted from April 30th to May 4th found that 61% of respondents changed the groceries they bought to stay within their budget because of recent economic conditions, while 3 in 10 said that they took on credit card debt to afford necessities. Credit card debt is at record levels right now, by the way. So things are rough for Americans. And to hear the president of the United States, who got elected, who got the popular vote because he ran a campaign alleging he was going to tackle the affordability crisis, the fact that he's now telling you, this is boring, I don't care, it's not that important. Okay, fighting Israel's wars is more important for me. Yeah, hopefully the chickens are coming home to roost. We're starting to see the beginning of that. And he deserves it. The Republican Party and incumbent Democrats, for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, they deserve it. They need to be voted out. We didn't get here as a country by accident. We got here based on the decisions these lawmakers and the executive branch has consistently made. And these are decisions that work against the American people. And we've had enough of it. So I'm guessing Congressman Nels isn't seeking re-election because he knows what the American people think of him. He's trash, and we'd like to take it out. So let's move on to one more story before we go to our second hour. I want to talk a little bit about a conversation that Theo Von had with a sitting United States senator. Let's take a look.
The Iranians are worse, but deep down, they want to kill us and hurt us the entire time we're dying. Now, that's my point of view. Tucker will have a different point of view.
Yeah.
He thinks that we're too close to Israel.
I think a lot of people, from people that I see all the time, that's the number one thing that people say. They think we're too close to a country that's created a genocide against Palestine.
Podcaster and comedian Theo Von hosted Republican Senator John Kennedy on his program to talk about a whole host of issues, but certainly the topic of Tucker Carlson and US support for Israel came up. And as much as I thought that portion of the conversation was fascinating, it was also infuriating because it was a perfect example of the way a United States senator, an American politician, behaves when he is sitting across someone that he knows isn't necessarily equipped with the expertise to identify that he is lying. So Senator John Kennedy lied to Theo Von's face with absolutely no problem, effortless. It was effortless. And so I'd like to invite Senator Kennedy onto our program. And I would like to hear him say the things he said to Theo Von on our program. And let's see how that works out for him. I'm not saying that in a threatening way. I'm just saying you're a liar and I'd like to challenge you. Let's see if you're willing to take that challenge. Now, with that in mind, they did talk about the fact that Theo Von is leaving the Tucker Carlson is leaving the Republican Party. That's been a big story. And Theo Von asks Kennedy about it. We're gonna get to that moment in just a second. But before we do, I wanna tell you that it looks like Tucker Carlson is actually serious about leaving the Republican Party because he just had an interview with the Columbia Journalism Review. And it looks like he announced that he's working on launching a third party. So let me tell you what he had to say. So he says, the breaking point and the huge change in my life came in June of 2025 with the 12-day war, which was not about Iran's nuclear program. It was the first salvo in a regime change effort led by Israel. And that's just antithetical to everything Trump ran on. Further, he says, I'm not interested in Israel. I don't think it's significant as a country from an American perspective. It's not in our hemisphere. It's got no resources. That's why it's trying to take over Lebanon. They want that gas field. So I just don't care. But once you start taking over my political system and destroying my country, then I have a right to care. So now I do care. Now, later in the interview, he decided to announce that he is forming a third party. He says, I'm going to help build a third party. There should be a good faith effort to figure out what benefits the country. I mean, if you make $60,000 a year, you're degraded. So he's talking about cost of living here. Your life expectancy has gone down, and the promise of your children's lives is likely gone. He talks about that a lot, by the way. I think he has 4 kids, and they're all adults now, young adults who are probably, looking to buy houses. They're looking to get married, start their families. And even coming from Tucker Carlson's, family and the fact that he, he's doing well for himself, I'm sure. It's so hard to buy a home in America right now. I mean, depending on where you're looking to buy, obviously, but you're gonna look to buy in places where the jobs are, and that's where the houses are like outrageously expensive. Like the neighborhood I grew up in, guys, which I thought, I don't want to live in the neighborhood I grew up in. I want to be an up and comer. Like I want to show that I've succeeded. I've gone further in life. I can't afford a house in Reseda, California. $1.5 million for a house in Reseda, California. Maybe you can find a fixer for like $900,000. That is insane, especially when you consider the current interest rates. Like people can't afford homes. So then he says, no one seems to care. It's not even a factor. What about Hamas? I officially don't care about Hamas. The US government should have as its first priority the welfare of its own people. So there you have it. Tucker Carlson is in fact leaving the Republican Party and says that he's going to help launch a third party. I don't want to get into whether or not a third party is viable. That's a long conversation. I think people should try new things. And if you want to launch a third party, and he certainly has a following, it could work, who knows? But he did say that he has no interest in being a candidate representing this third party. So we'll see how that plays out. But let's get back to Theo Von and the conversation he had with Senator Kennedy. So Theo brought up the fact that Tucker has left the Republican Party, and here's how Republican Senator John Kennedy reacted to it.
Longtime conservative commentator Tucker Carlson said on a podcast that there's no chance I would support the Republican Party ahead of the November midterm elections. Not going to support the Democratic Party. Carlson was quick to add, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, that's right. He said he felt like it was becoming an Israel first party and not America first. That's a big person to not have support from. Because he's been a big supporter of the Republican Party for a while. What's your response to that?
I know Tucker. He's very, very smart. He's very articulate. He has fallen out with President Trump and with those of us in the Senate who support Israel. He primarily fell out with President Trump over the conflict in Iran. Now, I've been very supportive of the president on the conflict in Iran. I don't want America to be the world's policeman, but I don't want Xi Jinping in China or the Ayatollah in Iran or Vladimir Putin in Russia to be the world's policeman either.
So you want to be the world's policeman? Because what he just listed at the tail end of that statement indicates, like, I want to decide, like, which regimes rule which country. Like, it's not your decision. Like, that's what it means to serve as the world's policeman. When you look at leaders of foreign countries and say, I don't like that. I don't like that. So we're going to do a regime change. And every time we do it, it's a disaster. So Senator Kennedy is a representative of failed US foreign policy that has been pushed upon us by the neoconservative class, who are loathsome human beings, who don't give a damn about this country, and only care about helping Israel expand its borders. That's what neoconservative foreign policy is. So, like, don't say, I don't want to be the world's policeman, as you are literally simultaneously saying things that you support that would make you the world's policeman. But okay, that's actually not the worst clip. Okay, that one, for the most part, is mild. But we're just getting started. So he later downplays Israel's slaughter campaigns in the Middle East. That should be fun. Let's take a look at that.
I'll give you another point of view. The real problem in the Middle East since forever, since God was a baby, the real problem in the Middle East is Iran. Hamas would hold the Gazans hostage. They would put them out front.
But how do we even know that? They killed 220
because
something.
We've seen it.
But they killed 220 something journalists that went there to document what was going on.
There's no question there have been civilian deaths.
They wouldn't let journalists in to even document what was happening there.
There have been civilian deaths, but it is primarily the fault. I'm not saying Israel is blameless. Look, war is ugly.
Yeah, but is this war?
But it is war.
So he just regurgitated the most laughable, like, Zio slop imaginable. So you have, I mean, I don't believe the death toll numbers coming out of Gaza right now. I think the numbers are higher. But okay, fine. Let's be very conservative here and just repeat the Gaza Health Ministry numbers, which is, I believe at this point, close to 75,000 people killed. A lot of people have been killed after the so-called ceasefire in Gaza, of course. But he looks at all those civilians slaughtered by the Israelis, by the IDF, and he still tries to repeat the ridiculous talking point that Hamas is responsible for all that slaughter. Oh, really? Is Hamas responsible for all that slaughter in Lebanon too? Is Hamas responsible for all that slaughter in Syria that Israel's responsible for? Is Hamas responsible for the slaughter, over 1,000 people killed in the West Bank since October 3rd? Is Hamas responsible for that too? Yeah? What a clown. Later in the conversation, by the way, Theo Von accurately brought up the fact that Netanyahu and the Israelis facilitated the funding of Hamas. And Senator Kennedy just effortlessly lies to his face about it and says that's not true. You're a good boy for Israel, Kennedy, real good boy. Did Israel tell you to fake your accent? Or did you just decide on that on your own? Look it up if you don't believe me. People who knew Kennedy back in the day, columnist who went to school with Senator John Kennedy, says that his accent is fake. This was reported by Mediaite back in December of 2019. What a clown. These people are so disgusting and fake, but we're not done yet. So after downplaying the slaughter, he had more to say. So I actually want to go back real quick, if you don't mind, Alyssa. So Theo Von also rightly pointed out that most Americans at this point agree with Tucker Carlson. So while he says, you know, Well, he says like he had a falling out with the president. That's all it is. Theo Von's like, well, I don't know. Tucker Carlson seems to be saying things that resonates with the American people. Take a look.
Look, I don't hate anybody, and the Chinese people, to the extent that the Communist Party in China will let you interact with them, are lovely people. But they are determined. They hate America. And deep down, the Iranians are worse, but deep down, they want to kill us and hurt us the entire time we're dying. Now, that's my point of view. Tucker will have a different point of view.
Yeah.
He thinks that we're too close to Israel.
I think a lot of people from people that I see all the time, that's the number one thing that people say. They think we're too close to a country that's created a genocide against Palestine, and then is like in conflict with these other people around them. That it seems like they're just like kind of the bullies of the area. You know, it's like it feels like they're the terrorist organization. That's what it seems like to a lot of people.
A lot of people believe that
because it's true. The IDF should be listed as a terrorist organization. They've killed far more people than Hamas has. They've killed far more people than Hezbollah has. So if those two groups are considered terrorist organizations, what are you going to say about the IDF? Just because they bribe you, Senator Kennedy, doesn't mean that you can't, identify what the truth is, right? If you're wondering how much he's taken in bribes from the Israel lobby, from AIPAC directly, he has taken $225,192. And then from individuals categorized within the Israel lobby, he took another $896,111. So over $1 million in bribes from the Israel lobby. So that's what informs Kennedy's commentary and lies throughout the entirety of this portion of their conversation. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go to the last video here because I think this is the moment that infuriated me beyond belief. That and the fact that he lied to Theo Von about how Israel facilitated the funding of Hamas. So let's take a look at this last clip and we'll get a reaction.
Israel has killed 20,000 children and injured 44,000 more since October 7th, 2023. Let me see. Palestinian children have been arrested and subjected to torture and other severe forms of mistreatment in Israeli prisons. This is all part of, let me see, United Nations.
Well, first, I wouldn't believe it if it came from the UN.
Oh, really? They're not. Do you feel like they're not
No,
liable?
They're not objective.
Sorry, reliable.
They're not objective.
Okay.
They're not objective.
Well, that's
number
the thing.
two.
It's tough.
Number two. And I know children got killed, and it breaks your heart. Hamas kills children too. So does Hezbollah. So does Iran. Do you think the Ayatollah doesn't care about the Iranian people?
I mean, Hamas and Hezbollah killed children, so why don't we just give the Israelis a pass? Is that your argument? That's your argument. That's your argument? And you're gonna have the audacity to say that the UN is not credible, which is another Israel supplied talking point. The UN accurately carries out investigations and puts out reports about Israel's treachery. Israel doesn't like it, so they're like, the UN, they're just full of Jew haters. They're not credible. And then you have the clowns in our Congress just regurgitate their talking points. That's what that was. Okay, then is B'Tselem credible, Kennedy? Be careful, it's an Israeli organization. They claim that Israel carried out genocide in Gaza. Are they credible, Senator Kennedy? Be careful, they're Israelis. You don't want to be a Jew hater, do you? These people make me sick. They make me sick. And this is in no way me trying to chide Theo Von, because Theo Von's heart is very obviously in the right place. He's doing his best, and you can tell he really, really wants to talk about this issue. You could tell when he was on Rogan's show. You can tell by the conversations he has on his own podcast. He's a comedian and a podcaster. He's not a political expert. He's not an expert in foreign policy. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I live for this stuff. I love reading about this stuff. I love studying this stuff. He's in a different, field of entertainment than me. And so I just want to be clear about that. I think Theo Von is doing his best. But what makes me so sick is that Kennedy decides to use the fact that Theo Von might not be as informed as like someone who actually studies this stuff every day. And he used it to his advantage by lying to him and his audience. But I gotta say, Theo Von's team, you can tell behind the scenes, they're like pulling stuff up, doing their best to push back on Senator Kennedy. But if a guy is willing to lie about his accent, like literally do a whole act for the American people and misrepresent who he really is, can you really be surprised when he's willing to lie about crimes against humanity? I'm not surprised. But anyway, the invitation is open. Senator Kennedy, please come on the show. I'd love to have a conversation with you. We got to take a break. When we come back for the second hour, we've got stuff, including the fact that Hegseth doesn't even want to test new military weaponry before putting it out in the battlefield. Great.
I'll work harder than an ugly stripper, man.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier, and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, and that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter Dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine Dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then, by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
I just love you. I just love you.
This was my ass. This was my ass.
Come on, come on. I know some people don't like this kind of music, but how could you not? How could you not? I need to get DJ Bart's mix from my shuffle sessions, okay? When I'm practicing my shuffle. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna read some super chats and then we'll head over to our next story. YTP Renewed says, purple nothing, Colorado's red, see Trey Parker. I mean, I do think it's actually still a little bit purple because there are some redder districts, there's some deep blue districts. So it is mixed, but the Republicans think that it's actually increasingly becoming a blue state. We'll see. Multi-Phoenix 30 says, Anna, you said this yesterday, but I agree. We are becoming an AI police state. It's all by design. Please get David Icke. He's warning about this since the 90s. Actually, there's a story about surveillance that I wanted to cover today. We didn't have enough space in the show and it's a better conversation. So I'm gonna save it for tomorrow's show. But thank you for saying that. And I think that we really, there are multiple things we need to fight against, right? So our foreign policy is trash, we all know that, but we are increasingly living in a surveillance state and we need to fight back. So I'm gonna dedicate more and more of the show to that topic along with AI. Let's go to Cylindrical Ferret, who says, I joined DSA today. I hope to volunteer and help them create media, my dedicated hobby. I love it. It feels good to get involved in any way, right? Whether it's through joining a group that's related to a hobby you're doing or political activism, just get out there, like turn the screens off, get out there, meet real people. It's good for you, okay? It's good for the country. We need to bring people together. Dav Mills says, government is a beast that by nature would enslave everyone unless restrained. I used to not understand that perspective fully. I fully understand that and respect what you're saying. History proves time and again, my faith in government is limited by the history I've studied. Yeah, same. And I think it's part of the reason why I wouldn't consider myself a libertarian, but I certainly have some sympathies with what libertarians believe when it comes to the role of government and wanting to keep it small and all of that. Okay, let's move on to our next story. I want to talk a little bit about what Hegseth is up to because it's not good. Secretary of Defense or War, whatever you want to call it, Pete Hegseth is apparently penny pinching the Pentagon in all the wrong ways. Because as we know, the Pentagon is a disaster. They have failed every single audit, every single one. There's a lot of waste in the Pentagon. But if you're under the impression that Pete Hegseth actually wants to do something about it, you'd be mistaken. Because all you need to do is focus on what he's cutting in the Pentagon. And it happens to be the necessary oversight to ensure, we do proper testing of weapons before they're introduced on the battlefield, that kind of stuff. So let's get to the details here. Hegseth entered the Department of Defense, which the Trump administration then renamed Department of War, with the mission to eliminate oversight boards and reduce what he himself sees as bureaucratic redundancies. Okay, fascinating. What does that mean? Now, considering his department's main agency is the Pentagon, which last year failed its 8th consecutive audit, the idea of, tightening the belt as it pertains to the Pentagon sounds pretty good. But it turns out that no, that's not really what's going to happen when you have an incompetent, corrupt alcoholic with rage issues at the helm. So like everything in this administration, the slop-shot manner in which they do things really tells you what their priorities are. So a report released Tuesday by the Government Accountability Office found the following. Pete Hegseth's mandate to slash more than 75% of the staff and senior officials of the decades-old Pentagon Weapons Testing Office has impaired oversight activities. So when we talk about cutting funding to the Pentagon, we're not talking about, oh, maybe we don't need to do weapons testing anymore. You know? We're talking about, hey, the Pentagon receives over $1 trillion, pretty soon $1.5 trillion because Trump is requesting it. What are you guys doing with this money, and why is it that you guys can't pass a single audit? In fact, if Congress actually represented the people, instead of increasing the Pentagon's budget year after year after year after year in the National Defense Authorization Act, what they would do is deny the Pentagon funding, except for salaries for our service members. They should not be punished. They deserve their salaries. But anything else related to the Pentagon, we're doing a funding freeze until we figure out what the hell is going on. Why can't you guys pass a single audit? Instead of doing something like that, you have clowns like Pete Hegseth thinking, we don't like oversight. We don't like testing the weapons. So let's get rid of those people. The Office of Weapons Testing, for example, has for decades served, I would say, a pretty useful purpose, no? Established by Congress in 1983, DOT&E's job, that's the agency we're referring to, in part is to produce an annual report updating lawmakers about the progress and challenges facing multi-million-dollar and multi-billion-dollar weapon development programs. It also serves as an advisor to the Joint Requirements Oversight Council. So, a little bit of oversight when it comes to the Pentagon is useful, but apparently not according to Pete Hegseth or Elon Musk's Doge. So Doge described it as redundant and non-essential. You know what's redundant and non-essential? Sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel. We do that repeatedly, redundant, and it's a waste of our money. In fact, it is worse than a waste of our money. We are aiding and abetting genocide and ethnic cleansing in the Middle East. That's terrible. We shouldn't be doing that. But no one's having a conversation about cutting that off, right? Other than some Democrats in Congress, and it's going nowhere. Hegseth drafted a memo outlining his desire to take an axe to the office, promising that it would return approximately $30 million to the American taxpayer. But that's not all. So what has happened is the staff that oversaw the test plans for military aircraft was cut from 14 people to 6. We're talking about testing and oversight for military aircraft. You want to make sure they're functioning properly. You want to make sure they're safe. No, according to Hegseth, no, we don't. We'd like to cut down on the staff in this department from 14 people to 6. Also, the Navy systems that oversaw testing of submarines, aircraft carriers, and destroyers was reduced from 15 people to 8. The Land Warfare Office, which oversees air defense radar and missiles, was also cut from 19 people to 5. So understand what's happening here. There are like essential workers, employees in the Pentagon who they make sure that the military aircraft is functioning properly, the radar and stuff, like it's functioning properly. It's important to make sure that our service members are safe, right? As they're operating this aircraft, as they're in these submarines. But we are going to increase the Pentagon's budget while Hegseth is firing these people from the agency. Okay. But there's more. So the analyst branch that managed space programs, likely the Golden Dome early warning and space surveillance segments, was slashed from, let's just get rid of all of them. Like, what do we do? The Golden Dome thing is a joke. Let's stop kidding ourselves. This is a clown show. So I'm okay with that. He slashed that group from 14 to 9. Let's get rid of the group entirely, okay? And the GAO specifically, that's the Government Accountability Office, specifically had 173 weapons on their oversight docket. But Hegseth cut over 90 programs that would have assisted with that effort. Okay, so reasons given for removal ranged from program cancellations to program mergers to an internal decision that oversight was no longer needed. Let me just read that last part one more time. To an internal decision that oversight was no longer needed. Oh, okay, great. We don't need oversight of military aircraft or military weaponry or the submarines. We don't need that. It's not important. Insane. This is insane, but there's more. All of these cuts have major downstream effects, and we're already starting to see it. So Bloomberg reported on this, and they write that staff told the Government Accountability Office that the losses in oversight depth and breadth caused by workforce reductions and subsequent loss of subject matter expertise, something that Hegseth wouldn't know a damn thing about, increased the risk of weapon systems being delivered with undocumented shortfalls related to effectiveness, sustainability, survivability, and lethality. And that's not all. The GAO said officers cited gaps in core expertise for critical oversight capabilities, such as electronic warfare, due to workforce reductions, and indicated being overwhelmed and overworked. And let's just talk a little bit more about the weapons testing, because that seems to be important, especially considering the fact that we just slaughtered, over 100 little kids at an elementary school in Manab, Iran. 175 children were killed. Like, what are we doing right now? I'm sorry, 168 children were killed. A total of 175 people were killed. Test office officials also raised concerns that the military services were increasing their use of a fast track contracting tool called Other Transaction Authority, or OTAs, and other rapid prototyping efforts to avoid live fire and operational testing requirements. Pete Hegseth is a liability to our government, to our military, to our country. He should be nowhere near a position of power. He is incompetent and seems to have a level of bloodlust that I haven't really witnessed even among the Israelis, which is really saying something. Have you heard this guy speak about slaughtering people? Like, he creams his pants thinking about it. So am I surprised that he would want to get rid of the very people who do oversight of military equipment and weaponry? Am I at all surprised that he wouldn't care about the weapons malfunctioning or the aircraft failing or the submarines not working, whatever it is? Am I surprised? No, of course I'm not surprised. Weekend anchor over at Fox News, who was loathed by his own mother. That is our Secretary of Defense. Congratulations, America. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how much money Trump has made over the last year. It's a lot of money. We'll be right back. All right, I'm gonna go nuts. I'm gonna read a bunch of Twitch comments, starting with Broken Wing Dragon. I'm so over these repetitive corporate Democrats. They don't hear us, nor do they even want to hear us. Please make them go kick rocks. Well, it looks like the voters are making some of them kick rocks, and I love to see that. Progressive Entropy says, I need a raise at work, man. I can't afford $400 at the grocery store every 2 weeks. Yeah, I feel you. I really, really feel you. This is, To hear people who signed up to be public servants say that Americans just aren't working hard enough if they can't afford things, it's just, all right, I'm gonna stop myself before I say something I'm gonna regret. Okay, Zen Space 101 says, if Democrats succeed to make Mamdani and others to endorse them in the next election, the success means the issue of Palestine genocide becomes like any other issue, guns, immigration, etc. We should just dismiss them and not endorse or talk to them so the others in Congress know that this issue isn't for sale. You know where I'm at. I don't trust Kamala Harris, and I know exactly what she's doing. So I'm on your side on this. I totally agree. Bloated Ego says, are the voters in Louisiana ever going to vote this jackass out? I don't know. I really don't know. Honestly, I haven't looked into Kennedy's approval rating or how his constituents feel about him. So who knows? I should look into it. But I mean, what has this guy accomplished in his political career? He's a United States senator.
I'll work harder than an ugly stripper, man.
Okay, I gotta read this comment. This is from Bud Rollin' One. Of course it is. Anna has something to say. Pack your bowl now. Break coming in a few. If you partake during my commentary, I want to know about it. And I'm also kind of jealous. I would never do that during the show just because I don't even know how it would perform. Okay, like how I would do the show under that condition. I'd probably giggle a lot. I'd probably get real hungry, but I want to know about your experience. Anyway, let's get to the next story. I want to talk a little bit about what we've learned from Trump's latest financial disclosures. So, every year, politicians are mandated to carry out financial disclosures so we know just how corrupt they really are or how much money they're making while they are sitting in public office. President Trump just filed his latest financial disclosure. And of course, this covers the last year, 2025. And it turns out that, the president, not corrupt at all. I mean, he barely made any money. He donated his government salary, actually. So I'm just kidding, obviously. No, he made more money than he's ever made in his entire life in 1 year in his second term. So let's get to the details here as reported by the New York Times. They write that the president pulled in, oh my God, at least $2.2 billion. Okay, let's pause for a second. So do you guys now understand why Trump is bored by questions about affordability? On multiple occasions now, people are like, hey, you said you were gonna tackle the affordability crisis if you got elected. Like, are you gonna do anything about that? Just like, boring. I made $2.2 billion last year. Like, what are you up to, bum? Okay, so let's get to the rest of this. So pulled in at least $2.2 billion, a figure that includes other parts of his vast holdings, such as his real estate assets. That compares to a minimum of $622 million his enterprises pulled in for all of 2024. So just compare that. He's not president in 2024. He's running for president in 2024. He pulls in $622 million. He gets elected. And in his first year, in his second term, 2025, $2.2 billion. So, this would lead me to believe that the way our political system works incentivizes the worst scumbags imaginable to run for public office, no? When members of Congress are allowed to engage in insider trading, left and right, by the way, Democrats and Republicans, don't you think that's going to attract all sorts of corrupt, disgusting, self-enriching scumbags to run for public office? So maybe we don't incentivize the scumbags. Maybe we, change the system. But anyway, let's continue. That massive amount of money, $2.2 billion, was thanks to Trump's crypto nonsense, of course. So according to the New York Times, one of the biggest hauls came from an investment tied to, oh wow, the UAE. So the UAE bought half of the Trump family's crypto company known as World Liberty Financial, totally above board. Nothing suspicious there at all, of course. Now CNBC, by the way, I have a problem with that. Just like I have a problem with foreign money in the form of the Israel lobby influencing our politicians, I have a problem with the UAE purchasing half of the Trump family crypto company. Why do you think they would do that? Is it because they really find this crypto company valuable, or is it because they want to have influence over the Trump White House? So the crypto figure includes about $580 million connected with World Liberty Financial, the company co-founded by members of Trump's family that issues the WLFI governance token and USD1 stablecoin. World Liberty launched USD1 in March of 2025. You know, it's funny because I remember when Trump was against crypto, he thought it was a total scam. And then he realized, oh wait, I could use this to my own advantage. And he did. And so he's making a lot of money off of it. Trump also disclosed receiving $635 million in royalties from what were described as celebration coins. The royalties are tied to CIC Digital LLC, Trump's meme coin business. So he's making money off meme coins, which have no inherent value, which happen to be a joke, which are typically involved in pump and dump schemes. Okay. And you can see how that compares, by the way, to his other sources of income. So when it comes to crypto, he's really raking in the dough thanks to crypto. But remember, he had other investments, other businesses, other means of earning money, like his golf courses and properties like that. But let's do a comparison. Let's take a look at this chart, which is so incredible. Cryptocurrencies surpassed other sources of Trump's income. So as you can see, when it comes to cryptocurrency related profits or cryptocurrency related money revenue, we're talking about, excuse me, a lot more money compared to his other selected assets. So with crypto, Celebration coin license, $635.1 million. WLF token sales and rewards, another $526.8 million. And then you look at his other investments, golf-related revenue, just a measly $254.5 million. Mar-a-Lago, even Mar-a-Lago, $77.5 million. So crypto is really what helped him, increase his wealth. His wealth exploded as a result of crypto, and how it can be used for all sorts of unsavory things, laundering money certainly, but in the case of corruption, bribery, influence by foreign countries. So it's really interesting to see these numbers. It's also really interesting to see how little people seem to care about this. But again, this isn't so much an issue about Trump. I mean, Trump's involved certainly, but I want you to just take a step back. The figures that we talk about are kind of interchangeable, guys. The big problem is the system that allows for this to happen, right? That allows for, and in fact, incentivizes pretty terrible people to run for public office because they know they can use it to enrich themselves and have their wealth explode. We have to change that because we can't allow for these unsavory incentives to exist. It totally perverts our political system. And it ends up working against us. So this is what he had to say earlier today before his inaugural flight on the jet the Qataris gave him, because he was asked about his investments and how much money he's been making. Let's take a look.
Your financial disclosure shows you had a very lucrative year last year. What message does this send to average Americans, especially those
I don't get involved in my personal. We have funds that run my money.
But you are benefiting.
Well, I've made a lot of money before I became president, and they invest my money, and I don't talk to them. I don't even speak to them. So I have many people. I don't know what they call closed accounts or something. You put your money in, and that's it. I don't talk to them. They're big institutions, and they run it. But yeah, I've had a great career. In business, I've had a great career.
Concerns about conflict of interest?
I don't know if I've had a better career in politics or business, but I had a great career in business. And, you saw the cash and you report the different things. And what they do is we gave it, I think it's called a blind account, but they take it. And I never speak to any of the people that run the money, but they're at big institutions and they invest in whatever they invest.
This is what they all say. I mean, Pelosi said this when it came to her very obvious, in my opinion, insider trading. I have nothing to do with it. I've got a money manager, he does his thing. I don't even talk to him. No, what do you mean? I consistently beat the market. It's just might be luck. These people are such scumbags. Okay, but when asked about concerns that he's profiting off of his presidency, what did he have to say? Let's take a look.
Well, you know why I'm profiting? Because the stock market's going up. Everybody's profiting. If you have a 401k, how's your 401k done? It's about up 85%. Thank you, President Trump. So we're all profiting. I'm profiting because I have a lot of money and a lot of cash, and I give it to institutions. I don't know if they know what they're doing or not, but they buy a vast array of things.
Okay, just to be clear, this disclosure report doesn't show profit figures. It shows revenue. So we don't know how much he's earning. Just to give you an example, like the president shares in his own publicly traded company, where Truth Social exists, but the company's official name is the Trump Media and Technology Group. His shares are worth about $875 million. But those shares have plummeted over the past year, eroding some of his wealth, right? I just wanted to mention that because it's important to know like the full context of what he's invested in, what he's actually making the most money off of. However, the stock market's movements do not explain the bulk of his financial haul in 2025, including the UAE investment in World Liberty Financial or the licensing deals. Also, I should note that there's a huge portion of Americans who are not invested in the stock market at all, even though our politicians always point to the stock market as the prime indicator that our economy is doing well. So the top 10% of earners own the vast majority of shares, 80+% of shares. But even so, only 54% of Americans are invested in the stock market at all. So if Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, if credit card debt is at record levels, if inflation continues to be a problem and in fact has only gone up under Trump, I'm sorry, your economy is trash. But maybe he's just totally disconnected from reality since he had $2.2 billion in revenue last year. When the people who are supposed to be serving you are so wealthy that they could not care less about your own financial situation, yeah, you've got a broken political system. And that's what we're dealing with. It's just the truth. All right, we got to talk about homeboy Curtis Sliwa when we come back. Don't miss it. Francis Stardust is totally speaking my language. Being clear that it is a genocide is my single issue for future elections. If a candidate cannot admit, then they are worthless on everything else. I mean, I'm right there with you, to be honest, because it's just such a moral issue. Like if you are able to see what has transpired in the Middle East and continues to transpire in the Middle East, and you're totally okay with it. In fact, you're willing to lie to people about the reality of what's happening. How can I trust you on anything else, really? Let's go to Nicole Michelle. If Kamala Harris and Biden had governed better, we probably could have avoided a Trump 2.0. Every Democrat recently has failed and it led to Trump. Nicole, 100% thank you. I mean, this is the thing that drives me crazy. They fail. And then when voters don't show up to vote for them, they get upset as if the voters signed up to be their public servants. We didn't sign up to work for you. You signed up to work for us. And you have to earn people's votes. I'm so sick of the emotional manipulation. I mean, I've said that word or that phrase several times now. I really do mean it. Let's go to Big Stan 402 is less sympathetic to Theo Von. I hear you. I've gotten soft. I will admit that. But he's doing his best. You could tell his heart is in the right place. He says, well, Theo's a grown. All right, I want to do right by Big Stan 402 in our members section. I started reading your comment and then I got cut off because I'm doing a really bad time tracking time here. But anyway, he says, well, Theo's a grown ass man. He should try harder. I hear you. I hear you. But guys, you have to take into account what you're watching this show live. Everyone who's watching this show live, like, you love this stuff. Like, you want to know what's going on. You love politics. You want to follow along. You want to make sure you're informed. It is not everyone's cup of tea. So, like, just I would personally be a little kinder to people who might not really be into politics, but suddenly they come across something that's happening that really bothers them. And I think that's what happened with Theo Von. He saw the genocide in Gaza and he's like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we supporting this? And to me, given the fact that we are swimming with politicians who happily, unapologetically aid and abet it, any American who sees what's going on and is willing to speak out against it, use their platform to speak out against it to the best of their capacity, which is what I think he's trying to do, I'm gonna give him credit, So, but I hear you. Okay, with that in mind, let's move on to our next story.
Hey, come on, Dave. Come into the ring of fire. Yeah, eat your pizza. You're not going to get one freaking vote. Your claim to fame is you sampled pizza in New York City.
Listen, I know that Curtis Sliwa has a checkered past. I know it. Okay. In fact, our very own DJ Bart Kyle sent me lots of stories today about Curtis's past, including the fact that in the 1990s, when he was part of this whole Guardian Angels movement, it was like a vigilante crime fighting group in New York City. They did publicity stunts and made it seem like they fought crime that didn't exist, which isn't a good look. That's not a good look. And he did fess up to the lies later. But I don't care. Lately, he's been crushing it. And I do personally think he's one of the most interesting public figures in the country. So with that in mind, why is he even being mentioned on the show today? Well, the former mayoral candidate of New York City has slammed Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy for even considering a run against Zoran Mamdani in a future mayoral race, which I'm amused by this. I love it so much. So while Curtis may have, lost the mayoral race, he's still very involved in local politics, and New Yorkers seem to have at least some admiration for him. Let's take a look.
Oh my God, I'm fingering. That's Curtis. Oh my God. No, that's actually him in the red beret. Curtis! I didn't being here with iHeartRadio. Curtis is an ally. I'm shaking. That's so funny.
I feel like Curtis Sliwa became more and more likable with age. And so I love it. Anyway, and then, there are many people online who had some similar thoughts about him. He clearly felt that it was laughable that Dave Portnoy floated. Look, I'm in favor of democracy. So if Dave Portnoy would like to challenge Mamdani, have at it, right? Like, we kind of joked around about it yesterday, but Sliwa seems to think like this is some of the most ridiculous nonsense I've ever heard. So let's go to the next video. I think he's gonna make his case here.
Hey, come on, Dave. Come into the ring of fire. Yeah, eat your pizza. You're not going to get one freaking vote. Your claim to fame is you sampled pizza in New York City. This is what everybody has done. I mean, this guy is a real schmuck and putz, and he goes, I don't know what the demos are. I don't know what the map is, but I'd love to run in New York. Well, first you got to move here. Because the only reason he's running, he wants to fly the Israeli flag like the rest of these folks. They don't realize those issues. You can't win. And by the way, that's not what people want anymore. All the national issues now, the congressional issues. Do you support Israel? Do you support the Palestinians? Has nothing to do with being mayor. So Dave Portnoy, come in, knock yourself out.
Wait, Dave Portnoy doesn't even live in New York City at all? Like, I thought he was talking about was it Nantucket or something? I thought that was like his vacation home. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is crazy. Imagine being up in arms about a mayoral race in a city you don't live in. What are you doing? You know that Zohran Mamdani doesn't get to make decisions about foreign policy, right? Do you know that? I don't know if Portnoy knows that. I don't think we should knock him for being a pizza reviewer. We need pizza reviewers. I love reviews. I need to know which pizza is the best if I'm going to buy pizza. But anyway, there's more. So many other people online had a similar thought. Let's go to G4. We don't have that? Okay, that's fine. Look, I'm just going to end with two videos here. I personally think the guy is so entertaining and so interesting. And I'm not saying that in any patronizing way. I'm being very genuine. I think Curtis Sliwa is such a fascinating character that it would be insane not to develop a reality show around him. And it needs to be a good one with great producers, good writers, and they need to let Curtis be Curtis. And the reason why I say that is because in the mayoral race, in which he was a candidate, by the way, and refused to drop out, even though, Mamdani's haters were begging him to drop out in order to give Cuomo a shot at beating Mamdani, but he refused to do it. And I give him credit for that. I don't think you should be forced to drop out of the race if you want to continue running. But aside from that, we really got to see a side of Curtis that I didn't know existed. And it's the humorous, funny, entertaining side. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go to G5.
Eric Adams is damaged goods. Every day, a new case of corruption in the police department. They believe he's corrupt. Andrew Cuomo is a creep, slapping fannies and killing grannies.
Slapping fannies and killing grannies. I mean, come on. And every time I find myself on a panel with him, it's the best. He always has interesting things to say, which is why the last time I was on Piers Morgan with Curtis Sliwa on the panel, I said this.
You know, Curtis, the fight I'd really like to see in the octagon at the weekend would be Harry and Sean. If they actually fight, Anna, who's going to win, do you think, Sean or Harry?
I think Curtis wins. Curtis, you're the coolest. I want to hang out with you next time I'm in New York. Would you do me the honor?
Curtis will be doing security at the venue when I put on the fight. We've got to leave it there.
Let me suggest what I think.
Go on, Curtis.
What I think would be a great battle.
Yeah.
The new Department of Homeland Security chief, former Senator Mullins, versus Curtis Sliwa. The two tough bad boys in the race.
I like the idea
Nobody
of that.
gets to tap out.
He's talking about Mark Wayne Mullen. He wants to enter the octagon with Mark Wayne Mullen, who's now the acting, head of DHS. The guy's amazing. Like, I want to see it. I think it would be amazing. I think it should be part of this reality show that I'm hatching up. But no, in all seriousness, I think he's right about Portnoy, because if you're serious about challenging Mamdani, if you're serious about challenging any incumbent in any race anywhere in the country, you should know about the demographics. You should know about what's important to the people of that district, that city, that municipality, wherever, that state. And for Portnoy, what he's motivated by is he just can't stand the fact that now, for the first time, we have politicians, whether it be on a local level or federal level, doesn't matter, where we're starting to see politicians voice critique toward Israel and do so unapologetically. And it's amazing to me how many people in this country have meltdowns over that. Absolute meltdowns. Like, you have a guy who had no interest in running for public office now considering a run for public office, not because he wants to serve the people, but because he can't bear to hear Zoran Mamdani criticize a foreign country. That's insane. But that's unfortunately the environment we live in right now. But I think it's changing, and the change can't come soon enough, seriously. But more Curtis, I think Piers Morgan should have him on every other panel, just for relief. People will be fighting, Curtis will come in and he'll just say something hilarious and interesting. The guy's lived. That's why I like to hang out with older people, like elderly people, because they have fun stories and they've lived life and you can learn something from them. Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about with Curtis and his PR stunts in the 1990s, it was covered extensively in the New York Times. He did confess to making up crimes. The Guardian Angels confessed to making up crimes as PR stunts. But honestly, who doesn't have a checkered past? Am I right? I'm gonna give him a pass. I'll give him a pass. And let me know what you guys think about him. All right. In the bonus episode for our members today, we are going to talk about Jonathan Conricus, former IDF spokesperson, yet again attacking me and Cenk. But he did it in a context where Piers Morgan was challenging him, which I love to see. So stick around for that if you're a member. If you're not a member, you can become one by going to tyt.com/join. Let's go to some of our comments to wrap up the main show. Welcome to Ryu Kusanensi. I don't know if I said that correctly, but you're a new member, and I hope you enjoyed the bonus episode for our members today. Ronald Fan says, happy hump day TYT family and solo Anna. If we choose Kamala, I'm not reading anymore. We're not going to choose Kamala Harris. Okay, no, but seriously, if we choose Kamala Harris for president again, well, she's never been president, but if she makes it to the White House again, we will fall into the same trap, and we have to choose a populist who can know how to lead the government. Yeah, we're ready for change. I mean, I'm ready for change. So like these dinosaurs, and she's not old, that's not what I mean by dinosaur, but she's been around the political scene for a long time. I'm just less inclined to support people like that because we so desperately need to move forward. We need the change. So I'm with you 100%. Woman AF says, rub that salt in, put some muscle into it. I don't know what story that was about, but you know that you can rely on me to do that. Dubs Iyer says, Anna for president, set up the People's Party, unite both sides, clean up the politics patterns. Who knows? Maybe Tucker's doing that with his third party launch. We'll see. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. All right, those were our members. Let's move over to our tyt.com members, where we have Serenity Now. Anyone hear about Congressman Tom Keene? Out 3 months. Oh, yes. I think we might cover this tomorrow. I came across the story today and I wanted to put it in the rundown, but again, limited time. Anyone hear about Congressman Tom Keene? Out 3 months with depression, join the club. I'm guessing you haven't taken 3 months off work though, right? Because you don't have that luxury. Why do members of Congress have this luxury? How many Americans are struggling with anxiety and depression and don't get any time off? Anyway, the rest of the comment. Anyway, it seems he hasn't or wasn't depressed enough to stay off his E-Trade account. We're gonna cover this tomorrow. Make note of it, Alyssa. Make note. We're gonna cover it tomorrow. Rebel Dragon says, despite claiming he was a billionaire for decades, Trump never was an actual billionaire until 2025. Sure looks like it. Sure looks like it. Teddy Lucy Linda says, I remember when I was a kid, Sliwa and the Guardian Angels used to ride the New York City trains to protect people. Got to give him credit for that. True. And I'm sure that they made some people feel safe. But now I'm wondering how many crime fighting moments they made up. You know what I'm saying? But either way, look, the 90s were bad when it came to crime. So I'm not in favor of vigilante justice, especially if you're harming people physically. Like, don't put your hands on anyone. But if you make a point to ride the trains to help people feel safe, that's great. I actually think it originated from a good place, even if the guardian angels kind of played out in some dopey ways, to be fair. Let's go to visionary. Everyone in public office and their families, federal, state, local, have great healthcare insurance, paid for by us, of course, which the same officials say we cannot afford for ourselves and ours. Moreover, no physician or healthcare personnel charges government authorities / officials, including judges and others, copays or extra charges for anything, nor does any healthcare insurance corporation deny them meds or procedures. Fourth generation MD physician / surgeon. So the person writing in, visionary, works in the medical field and knows what he or she is talking about. And you're right about that. It is such an injustice that we pay, us taxpayers, fund the generous healthcare benefits that members of Congress get while they simultaneously deny us benefits, healthcare benefits. I mean, it's amazing. In fact, cut $1 trillion from Medicaid under the Trump administration, term 2, of course. Amazing. Anyway, bonus episode is going to be a lot of fun. tyt.com/join to become a member, or just hit that join button if you're watching us on YouTube, and I'll see you there.